Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be spending some time on Mil Standard 461G CS117 testing with the EMC partner AVI-LV3 test system. We'll start by going over a little bit about the system and the associated couplers used for CS117. Then we'll move to a brief overview of some different test setups. And then finally, we'll spend some time on the display. Mil Standard 461G CS117 pertains to lightning-induced transients on cable and power leads. For specifics on the standard, it can be downloaded directly from the Department of Defense, which I'll put a link for in the description below. The EMC partner, AVI-LV3, is designed for DO160G Section 22 Level 3, as well as Mil Standard 461 CS117 Level 1 for internal equipment. The AVI-LV3 is the newest model with similar capabilities as the AVI 3000, which we did a video on previously. This test system provides capabilities for waveforms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5A, and 6. There's also two different options for couplers that are commonly used with this test system, the CN-BT7 and the CN-GI-CI-V, which we'll walk through in more detail later. Let's go ahead now and let's start by taking a look at the front of the system. Alright, here's the front of the EMC partner AVI-LV3. This system is very similar to that of the AVI 3000. You can also reference the user manual for additional information on the connections on the front and the back. Let's go ahead now. Let's start on the upper left-hand corner and let's work our way right. Starting in the upper left, we have the touchscreen display. And then below that we have the on-off button. Just to the right of that we have our USB and auxiliary connections. And then next to that are BNC inputs and outputs, as well as our trigger output. As we look to the right of the display, we have the run and pause button, stop button, and below those two we have the rotary knob. As we work our way right, we have the plug-in module, and then in the upper right corner, we have the emergency stop. Taking a look at the bottom half of the unit on the right side, we have our impulse outputs, and above those we have the fuse. Let's go ahead now, let's get the unit turned around and take a brief look at the back. Here's the back of the AVI-LV3. Let's start from the left and let's work our way right. First, we have our AC mains connection. As we work our way right past the fan, we have our auxiliary connection. Next to that, we have the EUT power input. Finally, all the way on the right, we have a series of vertical connections. Starting on the top, we have the RS-485 interface. Below that, the USB port, Ethernet interface, and BNC inputs and outputs. Now let's go ahead and let's spend some time on the couplers. Here's the most commonly used coupler, the CN-BT7, which is typically used for waveforms 1, 2, 3, 5A, and 6. Taking a look at the coupler now, on the left side, we have our input 1, input 2, and then on top filter. On the right side, we have our monitor 1, monitor 2, and then on top the parking. When testing is being conducted, the cabling is placed through the CN-BT7, which opens up. Let's go ahead now and let's take a look at the CN-GI-CI-V. Here's the CN-GI-CI-V coupler, which is commonly used for Mil Standard 461 CS117 testing for waveform 4 if it is applied as a cable induction test. It can also be used for waveform 5 as well. However, from our experience, waveform 4 is more common. As you can see, the coupler is currently sitting on the ground as it weighs roughly 190 kilograms or roughly 420 pounds. On the left side of the coupler, we have the connections for the different waveforms. You can see at the top we have waveform 5B, below that 5A, and then all the way at the bottom waveform 4. As we work our way right, we have the outputs for ground injection testing or monitoring loop for cable induction. All the way on the right, we have a reference guide for the ground injection and cable induction test methods. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the setup for waveform 4 using the CN-GI-CI-V. Alright, now we're looking at the user manual for the AVI-LV3 from EMC Partner. We're currently looking at the waveform 4 calibration setup. As you can see, we have the waveform 4 outputs from our AVI-LV3 system going to the waveform 4 inputs on the CN-GI-CI-V. From there, we have our differential probe connected to the 2-turn connections, which will be used for verification. If we scroll down to the next page now, we can take a look at the test setup. Alright, here's the test setup, and as you can see, it looks somewhat similar to the calibration with the addition of a few things. Starting on the left, you can see we have our EUT, and then the addition of a current monitoring probe. We have 2 turns around our CN-GI-CI-V, and then we have our auxiliary equipment, or AE. That should complete a brief overview of the setup. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the display. Here's the starting display on the AVI-LV3, and as you can see, we have the different waveforms that can be selected. While each waveform is different, the menus will generally follow a very similar structure. Let's go ahead now and let's click on waveform 4. The waveform menus will have the criteria on the left, a graphic representation along the right, and tabs along the bottom. We also have an icon for the different options and settings in the upper left corner, and a back button in the upper right. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the criteria. On the left, we have mode, and we have options for both single stroke and multiple stroke. Below that, we have coupling type, and you can see this is where the cable induction, ground injection, and pin injection can be selected. Finally, just below that, we have our coupling device. And as you can see right now, we have the CN-GI-CI-V selected for waveform 4. Alright, so taking a look at the bottom now, we have options for level and time. Let's go ahead and let's select level. And as you would imagine, this tab has different testing criteria. Let's go ahead now and let's change our test level from 250 volts to 300 volts. To do that, just select level, and then go ahead and change it to 300. Then go ahead and select OK. Now, let's go ahead and let's click our final tab for time. This tab has the different testing criteria relating to time, which can be modified. Once all the different criteria has been entered, the green play button just to the right of the display can be selected to begin testing. Alright, that should complete the video today on Mil Standard 461 CS117 testing with the AVI-LV3. During the video, we walked through a little bit about the AVI-LV3 test system and related couplers. Then we took a brief look at the setup for waveform 4, and then finally we spent some time on the display. We hope this video has been useful, and please keep us in mind if you ever need to rent equipment designed for Mil Standard 461 CS117 testing.